instead of trying to fill my cup, if I focus on trying to fill other people's cup,
Mm.
in so doing, somehow through the weird laws that God has made into this universe, my cup is filled.
Welcome to the Passion Behind the Art Show. It's all about diving in with individuals to learn the awesome story behind their passion. It's your host, Daryl Pinnock. Enjoy this week's episode.
Well, I am super excited to have Alicja Colon on the Passion Behind the Art Show. I followed her on Instagram. I was introduced, I think at Creative South by Diane, but I didn't really put the face with the Instagram face. And eventually, it all clicked. So, welcome, Alicja Colon.
Dude, so thankful to be here. Thank you for the opportunity and just the energy and effort you put into this to bless so many other people. So just thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, so let's kick it off. How did Alicia's journey start? What age? When did you know that? If I know you do photography, but I know at some point you were dibbling in design. So when did your creative journey actually start, and how did it start?
Oh, so my creative journey started pretty young. So when I was in middle school, my dad had a vinyl sign shop. And this was like before, like Illustrator. So we were in Corel Draw, like zooming into logos, and they didn't have Bezier curves. Like I was like pixel cleaning logos, and I mean I was cheap labor because I was free, and I was pretty much cleaning up logos and helping weed signs and like put them up and whatever. And he kind of showed me what a side hustle was because he had his full-time job, which was like a airplane mechanic. But that's what he did on the side. So when it came to school, to college, I mean, the natural thing for me was to do graphic design. It made sense. That's the thing that I kind of got into. But once I got into the program at Georgia State University, it was a BFA, and it was one of those things where you had to, like, 100 people showed their portfolio, and then only like 10% of them were selected. So I got in and around the first round. And within the first year of like that portfolio extensive, I realized that I did not like it. But what I didn't tell you at the beginning of the story is that I changed my major like 3 times, So at that point I was like, all right, well, I made it into this portfolio thing. Like I'm here. I can't change my major again. I also moved out of my city from Savannah to Atlanta to go here. Like I can't keep messing with this. So I'm like, I'm just going to stick it out and I'm going to go through with it. So I'm thankful that I did because I ended up landing my first job at a church as a designer.
Cool.
Yep. And so that ended up being a very good place to work just because of it was full of grace, because there's a lot of things that as a young 20-year-old, or I wasn't 20, it was like 23 or something, you think you know everything, you know? And anyway, they always would handle that with such maturity that I did not have. And but when I was creating campaigns, I realized that it was a lot easier sometimes to create the photography instead of trying to find it, because I would end up spending endless hours trying to find the photos that I would need for these campaigns. But eventually it kind of clicked that, like I could probably make this. And then at that point, I started just dabbling in photography, had my first kid, which then I had a subject matter that I could like practice on. And then from there, the love of that just grew. And eventually I traded graphic design for photography, and pretty much the rest is history.
Okay, cool. So you basically, instead of looking for the photos, you started taking the photos.
Yep.
And like when you said so what kind of campaigns basically were you building?
Oh gosh, you name it. So it was a church of about 1,500 members. And so that meant that we had a lot of programs from like children and women and men and and your regular like bulletin services as well. So every single sermon series would be a series. Like it would be, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of a particular topic. Though each topic would change, the subject matter would change week to week, that the artwork for that cover would stay, right? So we would have to create that we would have to create anything. We had a pretty spectacular, and we still do, drama department. Fantastic. So we would create movie posters. And so we would eventually get to the point where we were staging the scenes and having the actual, actresses and actors, in the scene, taking photos of it and then making it into like a movie poster, if you will. Um, so extensively print is what I did.
Okay, okay. So was it like an interview based? Where did they have the job posted, or did like someone you know there? How did that job come about?
Oh, how I ended up getting that
Yeah,
job?
yeah.
I pretty much saw a job posting.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, okay,
Well,
okay.
I mean, it was my home church.
Oh,
So even though I was in Atlanta and this was in Savannah, I always kind of kept the pulse of like what was going on with that particular church. And once I saw that job opening, and I knew that my husband and I wanted to move back down to Savannah, I saw that as my ticket back home.
okay, okay.
So
I get
yeah.
what you're saying. I get what you're saying now. So,
Yeah, so it would definitely wasn't I wasn't ministry minded at all.
oh, okay,
Like
okay.
I went to the church because it was a job.
Mm.
So
That's a like I can't even fathom that angle. What was that like?
it was really unique. It was really interesting. I remember I was, gosh, these are stories that I've never told anybody. So I remember going into the interview, and I had an elder. He was also, so like whenever they interview anybody in the church, it's not just like one person. They take the integrity of their church staff really seriously, right? Because I mean, people are being scrutinized. Christians are being scrutinized. Leadership is going to be scrutinized, even if I'm just a designer. So they take it very seriously. And I remember telling the elder that was interviewing me that I didn't want to be a designer. I wanted to be a women's women's pastor, and uh,
Wow.
and he was like, "Well, this is weird. You're okay." And I was like, "Well, not now. That's not where like God is not telling me to do that now. I'm just telling you that's like his like 10, 20, 30, I don't know, year plan for me." And so anyway, I got the job. Still not a women's pastor, so I don't know what's going on with that. But
So how did that come about? Like, where was that like an interest deep down, like, or was that a legit
the
interest
desire
to be a
to be like
women's?
a women's pastor,
Yeah.
that is a desire that God put in within me that doesn't make any sense because I, up to literally about a month ago, there were some deep wounds at
Mm.
the hands of women that uh, I generally just did not trust that whole gender, if that makes any sense. Uh,
Yikes.
yeah. So it was one of those things where it's like, God, I feel like you're leading me in this direction, but it doesn't make any sense because A, I don't have any female friends. I don't generally like females whatsoever. And I have absolutely nothing to say to them, frankly. Um, I kind of, and so at that point, it literally, literally, this is like so fresh. It's like within the last month, like God showed me all of these different things that happened that have, I don't know how to say it, but like mushroomed into this like wound that I had that was festering that I never
Mm.
allowed him to heal. And then finally, I started changing the questions in my inner dialogue, and God
Mm.
showed me that the issues were within me. And then from there, like received healing so quickly, which I've never received healing that quickly from a wound before, which is
Mm.
really interesting. Like normally it's a very slow process.
Yeah.
But this one was like boom. And it's been amazing. And so what's really interesting is that I'm actually in talks with the women's ministry now about becoming just a leader in the ministry, um, and like leading Bible studies and because you know preaching and all that stuff. So it's really cool to see how God is leading that. And it's just a reminder of like, when Abraham was told that he has, like God told him that he was going to have a son. he told him like when he was like 60, 70 years old, and it didn't happen until he was 90. So when God gives us a vision that, hey, something is going to happen, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen like that. It means that he's going to be faithful, and he's going to take us from, faithfulness to glory to glory until we get there.
Gotcha.
But we have to, sorry, I can really, this
Nah.
is a soapbox for me. But like he's going to take us there as long as we abide in him, and as long as we're willing for him to open up and to show us what's going on in our lives. And it took me a really long time. I wonder how quickly, if I switch that thinking in my head, that inner dialogue and those
Right.
questions, years, like decades ago, how far along I would have been. But because I was afraid to ask those questions, afraid to look at those wounds, I just kind of sat festering in it.
So now you talk to women.
Yes. Now I have a small group, and they meet in my house, and like I would have to say that I have deeper relationships with women than I've ever had, and that God is just using all the past wounds and all the past lessons to like for his glory, and to teach them and to grow them. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So explain to me what you're currently doing is photography. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I noticed like you also make, is it paper art?
Paper craft. Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So so now you're into photography, you realize the design is not your thing. Let's talk about that a little.
Okay, so within photography, there's different niches, right? And so I just tried all the different ones, and I landed to commercial photography and specifically product, and I really loved product. But the problem is that I didn't really like shooting people. So because people generally are very insecure, like, they're, oh, I don't like that angle, or are you going to fix my face, or like this, that, and the other. And product doesn't do that. But I also realized that if I wanted to shoot people the way that I wanted to shoot them, there's no way. If I wanted to photograph people, there you go, the way I wanted to photograph them, I would need to build these elaborate sets. And because I am constrained at Focus Lab and in my home studio to this like really small area, I couldn't do that. So I kind of just converted that love, or transplanted or reimagined that love for sets to be smaller. Gotcha. And then for the subject to be my products. And so the first time all of that started coming together was when I was shooting for Super Team Deluxe. And they had these little tiny lapel pins, which I have one on right now. You can't really see it. Gotcha. And in order to tell the story, because all the lapel pins are really fun, and they're kind of tongue in cheek and all this, in order to try to help tell the story, I would have to create these sets sometimes, or create really intricate backgrounds with paper. And what better thing to use that was so malleable and so cheap to experiment on but paper? And so from there, I realized, wow, I can tell concepts with paper. And so from there, I remember I went to Circles Conference. This was in 2016. And Mikey was talking. I think it's Mikey or Mickey Burton. I don't know. Anyway, he's a fantastic illustrator. And he was showing us advertising illustrations or editorial illustrations, like headers. So like trying to meld the concept of what this particular topic was with his illustration, and he combined all these elements very cleverly, and he also talked about his process. And I was like, I can do that with paper. I can be a paper illustrationist, but with photography. And there's not that many people out there that do that. And so I just kept iterating and iterating, and then realized that there were actually a lot of paper crafters out there. And I am way underexperienced compared to them. But because I have a decade of photography experience and lighting experience, right, I can meld that within my paper craft that other paper crafters can't do. I can make the light a part of the narrative instead of just illuminating the scene, which ends up giving me a little bit of an advantage. And it also makes my stuff super unique because I don't look at it as, like the illustration in and of itself in paper, the paper craft in and of itself is not the end frame. The end frame is actually what I'm going to do once I get to camera and then once I get to Photoshop.
Okay. So the sets that you were making, was it like miniature sets or?
Yeah, they're all like you could generally put them in your hand.
Okay.
If the largest one that I've done was the Creative South scene. So
Yeah, that was
Creative South
amazing.
2016 header. Yeah, and I mean that was like it's a 2 feet by 3 feet. It was definitely a lot larger. Um, and anything that I make small that can fit in your hand, it's just because I just designed it in Illustrator and didn't even look at scale because I'm still really new to it. So like now I'm getting to the point where I actually look at
Scale and
measurements.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. Gotcha. Because I saw the one, and I guess this is where the photography comes in. Because the one that you did for Scotty, I did not know that that was paper when I first saw it.
Oh yeah.
I did not know that the replica, basically his drawing of the pizza on a pencil. So when I
Yeah.
saw it, and then I caught wind of your process, and then I seen the bits and pieces of you putting it together, I was like, oh, so now I get the colliding of photography
Yeah.
and the building of a set, which was amazing.
Yeah. So previously, the whole paper crafting was supposed to augment the product, but then the paper crafting became the product.
Right.
Yep.
So you're on this journey now with photography and building these sets, right? And I know it's always been easy for you. It's always been pretty much cakewalk. But just in case, what would you say was the biggest struggle in trying to get you to at least where you are right now?
Oh my goodness. My biggest struggle is ongoing and it's insecurity.
Mm,
All right, I have failed forward so many times that this time I'm going to fail backwards. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And so there was this one time I remember I was making, okay, so I don't have my Bible in here. So I do these things called personal declarations, and they're truths, and it's kind of to transform your mind by the renewing, blah blah blah. So I think about these scriptures every single day, and I say them out loud every single day. And there's this one particular piece that I was doing, and it was an iceberg. And up to this point, I was able to. Okay, side note, I really suck at math. Like horribly so. Like right angles, geometry. I know right angles 90 degrees, but all the other angles, like I don't know. Like trying to find a diameter, even figuring out what that even means. Circumference how is that different than a diameter? Like I suck at math. And so when you're dealing with measurements and like units of precision, that's kind of important for you to know.
Right.
So I had this one particular project. It was an iceberg, and icebergs are made out of triangles. And I remember crying at one point, going like, I like called my husband. I'm like, I'm staying. Like I have to finish this. And I just remember like just stopping, going like, I am such a failure, and just kind of like those natural negative things like just popping up. Like I can't do this. I can't be a paper crafter. I can't make this happen. And then I literally just cleaned my desk and didn't even have the sheet of my personal declarations, but said them over to myself over and over again and going like, in my weakness, you are strong. I really need your help. And then went forward and tried again. And just every single time I would fail at one particular triangle or angle, I would just say it over and over again. And it's not my favorite piece. It is on my website. It's not my favorite piece whatsoever. But it's a piece that marks a lot of growth in me, and not from a technical standpoint, though I did learn a little bit about geometry that day. Um, it marks growth from a mental health, like positive thinking perspective, because I really think that that was used for me to kind of practice and to really believe that I could do it.
So when you say insecurity, because like it's always mind blowing to me when I talk to different people and they say people that I think that are doing an awesome job or doing their thing, they are doing Instagram stories and just giving inspirational thought, and then they say they are struggling with insecurity. Like, what would you say is like the reason for that? Like, for the insecurity, what would you say is causing that? Because I just can't see it on my end. You being someone that struggles with insecurity.
Insecurity. Oh, um, I think a reason why everyone struggles is definitely personal to them. And I can't really pinpoint why I struggle with it. Um, one of the things I have pinpointed is that instead of trying to get rid of it, I'm going to be thankful for it. Because as soon as I realized that this is going to be something that I struggle with, it gave me the opportunity to look at it that it's a gift. Just like the thorn in Paul was a gift to allow him to say, his grace is sufficient. Like this insecurity that I struggle with, that I really feel like this is just something that I'm going to have to struggle with. That this is the thing that reminds me that I'm never going to be enough. Because as soon as I start thinking that I'm enough, then at that point I have pride and I have ego, and I don't want that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want it. I don't want that. So, now I think that there are some other things that, like, practically speaking, probably did cause it.
Right.
Just the lack of affirmation as a kid, wanting to be accepted by people,
Right.
like more importantly than anything. So if I like post something and I think it's trash, I'm just like, oh, no one likes it. But at the same time, like, because of this healing that I had, like that I was talking about like a month ago, I kind of pinpointed some key events that made me think that way about things.
Gotcha.
And so it allows me to like realize, that's not a truth that I'm thinking. That's a lie. So I can kind of flip the script on that. But
Gotcha. Well, which makes sense. I mean, I think especially now with social media and the attention and the lack thereof, I kind of think sometimes it kind of either fuels the insecurity or vice versa. Because like for me, like I would say like I guess an insecurity for me, which would be shocking, is talking to new people.
oh, I didn't even notice that.
But I've kind of like made a mission, like all my insecurities are all my fears. I just want to face them head on.
Yeah.
So that's just my way of just kind of facing it head on. But it's just funny sometimes, especially with social media, with the need for affirmation, and how sometimes we all kind of struggle with that when we don't see enough attention on what we're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where sometimes we allow what we create and other people's engagement with it steer the direction of which we should go. So if something, we put out there and people don't engage with it, at that point we should think like, oh, that's not good. We don't need to do that anymore. But there's so many different factors of why perhaps maybe that engagement's not coming. But if that's something that's truly within the heart of you,
right,
we need to post that and post that and
right,
post that and post it again. And don't allow what other people think sway. And that's easily said, way more easily said than done. Because I see myself waffling on that. So.
Understood. So during this, I guess, this journey, like who would you say you pull support from? Who would you say your support system? That group of people that when Alicia's down and out, or need that pick me up, or need that boost, who would you say your support system is?
Okay. I would have to say that my support system, so gosh, 3 years ago when I didn't have any friends whatsoever, Justin Mazel like really stepped in. And this is when I was taking, so I was still in photography, but I wasn't doing commercial photography. And I really wanted to try to like dive into it. So I literally was doing photography like 5 hours a week for Focus Lab, and that was it. That was the money I was making, and it was hardly anything. And I was wondering, like, am I going to be able to make this? Like, am I going to be able to sustain my family and myself off of this, you know? And Justin would pump me full of encouragement, and
Wow.
like he would give me critique, and he's like, I'm not a photographer, but I can definitely tell you what I think, helps or not. And then he introduced me to Raji. So like Justin is very cerebral. He's a very logical, analytical thinker. Uh, Raji is the complement of Justin, as that he is the heart. Like he's
Right,
he's a
right,
very
right.
emotional, empathetic person. And so, where Justin and I aren't as close as we used to be, Raji and I are still pretty close. And if there's something that's happening, and I'm like, dude, I can't get this, or I'm really struggling, or I'm trying to figure out what path I'm going to go, he's the one that like guides me. But if you notice, those two are males. Okay. And because I really struggled with female relationships, I
Gotcha.
really, really, really did. However, now I would have to say that I have friends that no one would know because they're all local community people to me.
Hmm.
And even though they don't necessarily understand the struggles that I'm going through, like from a creative standpoint, um, they know my heart, because I've bared that with them. And so it's like, I don't necessarily need them to understand my craft in order to support me,
Right,
you know?
right. No, that's cool. That's cool. So, currently, are you working, or for someone? Are you independent?
I am with Focus Lab,
Okay.
so full time, though I do freelance every once in a while. So whenever it has to strike me as a pretty awesome opportunity, even from a oh my goodness, I would learn so much, or oh my goodness, I would get to work with this person. I heard that he was really cool and would be really awesome, or she's really great and talented, and I would love to like be underneath her wing. Um, so yeah, something like that would have to happen in order for me to do freelance. But for the most part, I'm with Focus Lab exclusively.
So, if I'm not mistaken, Focus Lab is it the red F?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 I wasn't sure if that was what I was thinking in my head.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
So what's that like?
It is the most amazing group of people. They are insanely talented, every single one of them. Insanely positive. We generally don't have any negative Nancy's on the team whatsoever. Um, and they are all exceptionally talented at their craft. And I would have to say, like, the summation of my work is pretty much their efforts.
Hmm.
But because I get to take the, final click of it, and I get to, edit it, and because I post it, it looks as if it's all me. And I try to go out of my way to shout out the other people, effort that is always behind the scenes. But, I mean, like, I can't tell you. There's very rarely one image that goes out of like Instagram that only I touched. Like for the most part, they've collaborated in some way, shape, or form. And when I say they're the most encouraging people, like there's this one thing that we do every single week, and it's we do round table. And at the end of the round table, there's this one particular part that's called high fives, and we literally just give each other high fives about specific things.
Mm.
And I mean, I've just never, I mean, our meeting is an hour. 30 minutes of it, generally speaking, is always used for high fives because we don't take granted the small things. And because we don't do that, we take time to champion each other. And so that also means whenever I'm down and out, I can also go to them, which has often been the case.
That's like unheard of. Like, and it's good to know because I know it exists that you go to a place of work and it's like just as encouraging as leaving home, what you're leaving at home. And there's so many places that people are like so depressed when it's Monday morning.
Oh my goodness. No, I mean they spend, I mean, I'm like the farthest one away from them, so it's really hard for me to do this, but like they go out on the weekends and volleyball, and when we have quarterly means that our remote team members, we only have a handful of them, but they fly in and they stay with us for a week, and like we are with each other. We work the 8-hour day and then we hang out until 11 p.m. at night, and then we go to sleep and we do the same thing. And I had someone tell me that they couldn't understand how, like, do they make you spend that much time together? Like, are you required to do games after you work or something? And we're like, no, we just really like each other. So yeah.
So it's a fact. These workplaces do exist.
They do.
They
do.
So what's next, Felicia? What's next?
Gosh.
What's in the horizon?
I don't know. I don't know. Just trying to fill out what those opportunities are, and really any opportunity that kind of opens up my availability to do more ministry, I'm going to take it because that's more important. I will not stop my photography. I will not stop my paper crafting. Since that, kind of circling back when God showed me that I was going to be a women's minister, I don't think that it's a traditional role. Like I've been getting more clarity about that. And that's actually why I Insta story some lessons sometimes. That's why I blog, some lessons sometimes. For a little bit, I was doing a devotional study on my blog, or on my website. So that's why I do those things, because God has shown me that I'm a minister in that way.
Gotcha.
And so I guess I can't say never because I don't really know. But for right now, I don't see myself going and working full time as a pastor of a church. I don't. But I do see me, whenever the need arises, to go write a sermon or whatever. And that's where my heart is.
So my question is, you have this crafting and photography skill. Like, have you ever thought of how would you intertwine that with your passion ministry-wise?
I have, and there's a couple of ideas that I've come across. Like one idea was, the articles, like headers for my articles. Right. That's pretty easy. Other ones were like creating posters to sell people and to give that money to like World Vision or, some really rad ministry. Other ones were creating children devotionals. So I have 3 kids. Nice. And I think it's really important to instill scripture in a young age, but understanding children, they have different developmental capacities, right? Depending upon what age group or age range they're in. And I always thought that it would be really cool to do a devotional, but then also to couple it with some like really cool paper craft illustration.
Nice.
So yeah, I can definitely see that it's a fusing like that. But I mean, I've even reached out to Humble Beast. Do you know?
Sounds familiar. What am I missing?
Yeah. They're music. I think they're a recording studio. I could be wrong. I'm sure people will let me know that I'm wrong. But anyway, but even reached out to them going like, hey, and even thought to like reach out to like Relevant. I'm like, hey, if there's ever anything that you guys need that's like paper crafty, like let me know. But that's definitely a small thing. So from a photography standpoint, there's like local ministries that can just benefit from like better photography to
Yes.
like share their stories and, plugging in there, trying to figure out like I'm actually in the process of asking Focus Lab if they will comp my time so I can serve photography for one of these ministries. And it wouldn't be like a lot, obviously, but just the sheer fact that I have two bosses that like are completely open to conversations like that is
Nice.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that would be a great idea because a lot of ministries need better photography.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Excuse me.
no, you're good.
So, as we're getting close to the end of the interview, what would you say? Because I noticed you started the Instagram stories. How long have you been doing that?
Since they came out, but I'm so irregular at it. I feel like there's so many other people that like they
Okay.
post at least once a day. But yeah.
Because it seems pretty new to me. I probably haven't noticed. But like the lessons I'm talking about. The lessons, the
Oh,
lessons, the
oh
lessons.
gosh. I would say I've been doing those for the last 3 months.
Okay.
For 2 months. I don't know when I got my courage up to start doing those.
Yes, which is because it's not short. It's like a few stories. Well, just
Yeah,
when it's
yeah,
like you're in like your car. You like.
yeah.
So what made you want to start doing that?
I noticed that there are a lot of designers and creatives out there that are very free with their thoughts, and a lot of times it's negative.
Hmm.
And not even just designers and creatives, but people in general. Some stories that I saw, some YouTube videos that I've come across where people are just really, it's really easy for them to proclaim things that are hurtful or just do things that are hurtful to other people and find it in jest,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
And I'm like, if they have such courage to post such folly, it's like, where is my courage to post something that could actually change someone's life? And granted, I understand that I might look like an idiot in doing it because I don't think it through or like it's just stupid and people think that it's just stupid asinine information, which I know that it's life changing because I've experienced that in my life. So like, why not? And I've actually so while I thought that I was going to be met with ridicule and I thought I was going to be met with like just
Stop it
what are
already.
you yeah, people practice their unfollow capabilities, which I'm pretty proud of them for doing, but others like yourself reached out and just said thank you, and it really meant a lot to them and that it was really encouraging or something was going on that particular week and that particular message actually really helped them. And then from there, it was like, wow, God, you can use me and you can use this. Um, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, even though I'm trying to like put him up high, like what will end up happening is that I'll start getting an ego from it,
Hmm.
and that's why I've actually like if you notice like the past couple of weeks I've stepped back and I haven't done one because my heart has to be pure and when I do it. Um,
Gotcha.
but yeah, he's so faithful. I'm getting there.
Well, just keep doing it. I mean, you just never know because I was just I don't know. It wasn't necessarily that I was struggling with anything. It just was a great reminder to kind of it was just a great reminder, and it's good sometimes to just go on social media or in a Instagram story and to see someone pouring something out that is beneficial or something of
Yeah,
you know that's uplifting versus
yeah,
as you would say drama or just stuff that I don't really understand the things that people post sometimes, but that's neither here nor there. But it's just
yeah.
good, and you just never know who's listening at that moment.
It's true. It's just crazy because it's like I would post that and then I would go to work and then I'd be like so again just insecure of
You
like
just like the
are
mind games
are my
going.
work people listening to this? What do they think? You know, because I mean, if people ask me for advice, like I obviously will give it to them. And having gone through the stuff that I've gone through, I have plenty of of advice, but um, I, generally people won't ask, and so that's why I'm not waiting.
Well, I love it, and I want you to keep doing
Thank you,
it. Keep doing it. So,
thank you.
what advice would you have for creatives um, to going forward? This new century that we're in, this age that we're in, and this need for affirmation, this what advice would you have? You know, a lot of us have this burning passion to do this, to do many different things, but this need for affirmation kind of, you know, I wouldn't say taint the passion, but it just kind of overshadows the passion.
Right. Um, if you try to keep your life, you'll lose it, and if you lose your life, you'll keep it.
Mm.
Because I mean, there's so many times where um, I try to seek out affirmation from a post, or I try to seek affirmation from, geez, a bad relationship, or uh, perhaps if I say these things or do these things, or I drink this much, or I smoke that, or like whatever. I think that I'll get the acceptance and the affirmation and the love and all of that stuff, and even from a work perspective, and it never happens. But as soon as I surrender and I say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to focus on loving other people. Instead of trying to fill my cup, if I focus on trying to fill other people's cup,
Mm.
in so doing, somehow through the weird laws that God has made into this universe, my cup is filled. But if I try to fill up my cup, it won't work. But if I try to fill up your cup, if I try to fill up other people's cup, then my cup will be overflowing and it will just continue that cycle. But the problem is that we get so focused on, oh, but if I focus on other people, who's gonna focus on me? And if, you know, and I am, how am I going to get my cup filled and all that stuff? And then that ends up trying to control. And that's where anxiety and depression and loneliness and stress and all that stuff starts seeping in because we're so focused on our cup. But if we're focused on the cup of the other person,
I like
it will
that.
come back to us.
That is a great life lesson. I think I learned that more importantly from my mom. She was just a very giving person, and she
Yeah,
taught me the importance of thinking about other people. It's not quite at her level, but I know I learned that from her.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, Alicia, I mean, I thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great conversation, a great experience.
You can always connect with me at DP Creates on Instagram or Twitter. If you ever want to have a conversation, ask a question, that's DP Creates at Instagram or Twitter. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to get your feedback, so please leave a review on iTunes and keep sharing the podcast on social media. Be blessed.